what is AI? Why do we feel compelled to build it, yet we're also terrified of it? It's a cosmic mirror, and just like any mirror, it holds no malice. It simply reflects what it sees. And once we're able to see that reflection as humans, we get to decide what to do with it. Do we like what we see? Or what do we need to change? Think of human flourishing. In other words, if you can implement AI that helps your people, that builds them, that increases their capacity, that even, of course, affects the bottom line positively without hurting humans, that is the lens to look at it through human flourishing.
Hey, welcome to this week's episode of the Freedom Experience. I'm your host, John Moncrief, and today my guest is Jeff Burningham. He's a tech founder, an investor, a former Utah governor candidate, and now the author of the last book written by a human. Now, I'll be honest with you. When I saw the title, I thought I was in for a book about ChatGPT, deepfakes, and how AI is coming for your job and creating content and all those good things. But this book really surprised me. I picked it up this weekend and I couldn't put it down. It's not really about AI at all. It's about us, and it's about our role in what's happening right now with AI and the transformation that we're going through. And I think it's relevant to business owners and just everybody. Jeff sent me a copy. The book is being released on August the 19th. I'm sharing it with my partner and friends, and I just think it's one of those books that's worth reading to get a different perspective on what's going on here right now. And it's all about who we're becoming and who we actually need to become. So, Jeff's built billion-dollar companies, he's taught thousands of students, and he spent the last few years reflecting on what matters most, what it really means to be human in the age of intelligent machines. So, in this conversation, we talk about this idea of how AI is holding up a mirror to humanity, and that we really better like what we see and what it sees. We talk about the shift from what Jeff terms the old game, which is chasing money, speed, and external validation, to the new game, which is rooted in awareness and purpose and internal growth. And I just loved how he was thinking about all that. And then why at this moment, it's more than just tech disruption going on, that it's a transformation point for humanity. It's an opportunity to come together and to rethink what matters to us and to shape something better. I think basically Jeff is out there with this book. Here's a wake-up call to humanity, and he's trying to create a movement. So this is more of a philosophical than a tactical or strategy session or episode, but it's deeply relevant to the times that we're living in. Let's get into it with Jeff. Okay, Jeff, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you on. I read your book over the weekend, thoroughly enjoyed it. As I said before hitting the record button, I think I expected to be reading a book about, well, it's called The Last Book Ever Written by a Human, and I expected to read something about how AI is going to be writing books for us and content and all those good things, and I was in for a real treat. As I said at the beginning, it was kind of a call to humanity to wake up. And welcome to the show, Jeff. It's great to have you, and thanks for the time.
John, it's great to be with you. Anytime we're with another human being, it's sacred. We're on sacred ground. So it's really good to be with you today. And I'm so glad that you liked the book and that it surprised you and that it resonated. I wrote the book as a conversation starter. So let's have a fun conversation today. I look forward to it.
Yeah, it's just so much in there. So this podcast is geared toward business owners, folks who are running business and kind of hit a plateau and struggling and trying to figure things out. And I think your book is so relevant, but so much more than just relevant. There's just, it's one of those books you just have to sit down and read. And as I said, I sat down for the weekend and couldn't put it down, and thoroughly enjoyed it. But tell me about the journey to writing this book. I'm really interested in, you come from a staunch Mormon background. You've run for governor. You have very successful businesses yourself, entrepreneur, grown many successful businesses. But you get to a point where I think you have a huge amount of curiosity in yourself and put this book together. And what was the path to writing this book?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And We could talk just about that question for an hour. So I don't know what version you want, but let me try to give you a short version that maybe share a couple stories that helps you. So yeah, I've kind of climbed my little mountain of success.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people, I had become a human doing. I had left my being at the door and was following the model of success that I had kind of breathed in. It was just in the collective air that was a part of my upbringing in the Western United States, a member of a very high demand conservative religion. I'm the oldest of six kids. And so, yeah, I've built several billion-dollar companies, blah, blah, a bunch of business stuff. And I say in the book, I don't know if you remember this part, but so I climbed my little mountain of success. And when I got to the top, I say in the book, all that was up at the top of the mountain was a cold, howling wind.
Yeah.
And I said, where do you go from the top? There's nowhere to go but back down, picking up the pieces of a little bit of a tattered life, not because of anything wrong that I did, but just because I was on such a torrid pace that there were debris on the side and kind of, I was just pushing my way to the
Yeah.
top too much. And so that sent me inward. So you go back down to the valley of the shadow of death, and there's nowhere to go but inside, John. There's
Yeah.
nowhere left. I couldn't look outside anymore. I only could go inside. So I did that. A step in that process, several years later, was jumping into the governor's race here in my home state of Utah. I did not have a political background. I'm not a politician. I'm an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, but my subconscious was pulling me into deeper waters. And I could feel that. I felt drawn, and I, quote unquote, lost my mind. And in 2019, decided to run for governor. And it was a great experience, learned a lot, but lost during the pandemic. The most critical months of the campaign, wouldn't you know it, were
Yeah.
March, April, May, and June of 2020.
As we went into that
And
global lockdown.
yep, the pandemic. And I was running against two very well-known politicians. I was a political outsider. And so in an era where you can't even campaign or meet people, there was no way that I was going to win. There's always a flight to safety when there's massive disruption. I know this from economic markets, and certainly in the political landscape, that was the case as well. So losing the governor's race into the summer of 2020 gave me space and time for the first time in my adult life. I had some space and time. And I've always said I'm an adjunct professor. I've taught thousands of students now entrepreneurship. And I always say to them, with space and time, anything can be created.
Yeah.
And somehow, with the space and time I had, I felt very compelled to write this cosmic book, like you said, called The
Yeah.
Last Book Written by a Human, Becoming Wise in the Age of AI. That's what's come out of these last couple of years for me. And I viewed this as my own kind of little piece of art, my the best offering, let's say, that I could create for the divine and slash humanity. And so, yeah, I've become sort of, I've gone from being this very hard charging type A entrepreneur to being some kind of artist and hippie, John. It's
Yeah.
been fun, a fun ride.
Yeah. But I mean, you make such a good point. So many of the folks listening to this podcast are the kind of people who are climbing that mountain or have climbed to the mountain, get to the top, and realize that there's just a lot of kind of cold wind up there.
Yeah.
And I loved how you talked about basically going from doing to being, so from human doing to human being. And I think at one point in the book you talk about, I think, looking into your child's eyes in the swimming pool and just
Yeah.
kind of thinking about being in the moment. And that's something that so many of us, myself included, you know, basically chase what I think you're talking about is the old game, and just chase, and ultimately forget about just kind of being. and we've
Yeah,
lost that. And in what's going on with AI, this feels like it's so important.
it does. Because what happens, John? Who are you and I when AI can do most of what we do
Yeah,
better than we can? When machines have made things so efficient and I'll say effective, quote unquote, again, without as many mistakes as humans make, what is left for us? It's to be. I mean, it's to go inside of ourselves and to bring our being to everything that we do. As long as we're embodied here on the earth, John, you and I know there's going to be enough to do. I mean, everyone is busy, everyone is doing, but it's more about our being, our presence that we bring to that. And I believe that AI is a cosmic mirror to humanity and that there's a divine purpose to this mirror. And it's meant to reflect to us or remind us about our being so that we return to our being, so that we rehumanize ourselves and lean into the magic, the gifts, the wonder of what being alive and existing means.
yeah.
And that's the blessing, I think, here in disguise, or at least it could be. This is
I
the
think
way
that's
it could
it
take
could
us.
be. And
This is
this
the
is the
way I'm
big
trying to
challenge.
take us. This
Yeah.
is the way, this is why this book came out of me at this critical time in the summer of 2025 when people are grappling with what it means to be human. What is AI? Why do we feel compelled to build it, yet we're also terrified of it? It's a cosmic mirror, and just like any mirror, it holds no malice. It simply reflects what it sees. And once we're able to see that reflection as humans, we get to decide what to do with it. Do we like what we see, or what do we need to change? And as you saw, the second half of the book is really focused around how we can change and improve uh, human flourishing around the world and make sure that AI is serving human flourishing instead of human division and destruction.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that really interested me, if I think back to smaller things like coming from South Africa during the change of government and losing apartheid, there was a massive rally around sports. So when we had the Rugby World Cup, you could feel the change, and there was this opportunity for transformation. And we came together more. There was more this feeling of oneness, which you talk about in the book. And I feel like you're saying to us that there's this opportunity right now with AI where there's this opportunity to come together and to feel that kind of oneness and to kind of show it what we want to reflect back to us.
Amen. Yeah, exactly.
And that's the
Yeah,
big challenge.
it is. Yeah, my bet and what I'm working towards here, my bet for the next decade of humanity is a massive renaissance of consciousness. And I think that AI will be a trigger, a massive tool in that. Now, that doesn't mean it will be easy, John.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that there won't be a lot of pain. In fact, it's probably the pain that will cause us to reflect and transform ourselves and then eventually evolve. The book is laid out, as you saw, kind of along this interesting cycle of disruption that I've seen as a technology investor in like hundreds of startups in my career. I've seen this cycle repeatedly, but
And
it
there were
also,
four points to that cycle, right?
yeah, four
Maybe
points
just
that cycle.
take
Yeah,
us
let me
quickly
hit
through
them.
for the audience. Yeah, what
Yeah.
those are.
Yeah, let me just say though that what I think is interesting, John, is this also mirrors our personal existential spiritual growth cycle. It's kind of the hero's journey in a
Yeah,
nutshell. So the first step is disruption. The only constant is change. We don't like change.
we don't.
um, Change is hard. AI is bringing change, but that often causes disruption in a system, which the second step then is reflection. We have a little bit of time to reflect on why we're here and what our part could be in this. That's where the reflection of the cosmic mirror comes into form. The third step is obviously transformation. This is kind of when the hero enters the unknown, accepts the journey in the age of AI, and steps on to like the hero's path. And of course, the last step, the fourth step, is evolution, where the
Yeah.
hero returns with this wisdom. See, the call of the book could be simply stated that as our machines become more intelligent, it is incumbent upon us as humans to become more wise. That is the process that we are going through. It's kind of a death, life, rebirth process that AI is hastening inside humanity.
Yeah. I'm curious, and Jeff, where are we in that process at the moment? My assumption is we're at disruption right at the beginning. We haven't
Mm-hmm.
even got to reflection yet, but I,
Yeah, I don't know that because what's interesting about the heroic journey, and I write about this in the book, I think, is we're all on our own individual
mm,
journeys, heroic journeys. But there's also a collective heroic journey because I believe that I'll just say, like a divine oneness to the universe,
yeah,
to all of creation, to all of existence, to all of humanity. There's really only one thing that exists, and it is manifesting itself through innumerable forms. So you're one of those forms, John's one of those forms, I'm one of those forms, Jeff. And so this separation is really an illusion. The separation that we so often live in, the separation that infant AI, which I call social media, has bred into our
yeah,
culture more than ever. This division is really an illusion. The truth of existence is actually our unity. And so I think that that is the process that we're working towards. That's the quote unquote, like you said, game that we're playing. I call it the new game. And so I think that every person, to answer your question, I think that every person's at a different point, and then I think humanity's at a point. My sense is that we have been and are being disrupted right now, and that some of us, like myself, like yourself, like millions of other people around the world, are stepping into the reflection phase. We may be refusing the call that we feel in our souls because that's what the hero often does at first. But it's time to lean into that call so that we can move on to transformation and evolution. But yeah, I think we're somewhere in the disruption to reflection stage of the cycle, at least as I see it.
and what are you seeing in the reflection at the moment? As you were saying, the folks like us who are stepping in, what are you seeing at the moment when you look at that reflection?
I'm seeing beauty and possibility.
Yeah,
I've had enough experience to not be. I was a young bishop in my Mormon bishop in my faith tradition. I've sat with countless individuals in a lot of pain and anguish. I've traveled to 60 countries around the world. I've run for a statewide office in the ugliest political environment that you can imagine. I'm not naive to the challenges that are ahead of us. I'm not even saying that I don't think the outcome is necessarily certain. But what I see when I look into the cosmic mirror of AI, and what I see when I look into the eyes of another human like yourself, John, I see beauty and possibility. And again, I sense our divinity and oneness, which again, I think we're working towards. That working towards will be messy, ugly, painful work, but I think it's also the transformational work that our souls are called to in the age of highly intelligent machines.
yeah, because I mean, I think back to the pandemic again and what we went through with the pandemic and how the world sort of rallied together to you almost see the best of humanity sometimes when those kind of things happen. And overall, it felt like we were seeing the best of humanity at that time and trying to solve this problem together as one. And when we talk about not that AI is such a problem, but trying to navigate how we interact with this new technology, coming together as one and showing our kind of best face for that reflection is ideally, I guess, what we want to be doing.
Yeah. Well,
But
we're all fellow travelers, John.
yeah,
You and I have a different background. You're in Switzerland, I'm in Utah. I mean, we don't need to go through all the, we're all inherently different. But the argument I make in the book and one of my strongest core beliefs is that no matter our differences, whenever we're with another human being or other human beings, we always have more in common than we have different. Now, if you looked at media, social media, and every kind of, you wouldn't think that. You don't feel that way. That's not how we feel in our bodies right now. But I'm writing this book and I'm speaking on this podcast, and I'm reminding every single listener that whenever you are with another human being, no matter the differences in diversity, which brings beauty to the earth and is a necessary point, and then we all have differences, but no matter those differences, we're all a lot more alike than we
yeah,
are different. And I think it's important for us in this day and age to lean into that sameness. I talk in the book, you might recall, about three universal teachers that we
yes,
all have, that are always with us, that are common to all of us. They are our bodies. We all have a body that we often hate and ridicule in this life, but it's the most magnificent, quote unquote, technology known to man. I mean, our brain, our heart, everything. It's indescribably unbelievable. But our body is our teacher. We all have a body. We all have a family of origin, good or bad, that comes with certain programming that, by the way, is ours to shed over time, to shed the not healthy parts. And then the third teacher that we're losing touch with is nature.
yeah,
Nature is showing us the cycle of existence. It's helping us understand rebirth. And this is the process that humans will go through here in the next several decades in the age of highly intelligent machines. So we're all fellow travelers. We're forgetting that. We need to remember that and lean into that, in my humble opinion. And the book is a case. I hope that you felt the book was, I was critical of some of our institutions. I had ideas around reforming religion and coming together in politics, et cetera, et cetera. But I hope you felt like there was a wrapper of love kind of all around it.
yeah,
I think we
certainly.
need,
I mean, I think there were so many key things in that book. When you talk about the body, nature. I mean, for me, nature really resonated as well, and I think got me thinking about it. I mean, the big challenge with government, with education that you talk about, with just about all the institutions that we rely on as human beings and that we've constructed as human beings, have got to evolve and change. I mean, I think about my niece who's at school at the moment, where they aren't teaching them about AI or how to handle AI. They're teaching them how to knit. And I'm not saying that knitting's not, arts and creative things aren't good, but just fundamentally, kind of the schooling system needs to evolve. We've got to do something pretty quickly.
yeah, I think that cosmically speaking, time is always on our side because I think we're eternal. I think we're part of something eternal. So, in that long view, time is always on our side because there is no time. And
Yeah,
but in the here and now on Earth in 2025, it feels very timely. And that's why
yeah,
I think this transition from, you mentioned it, but what I call the old game versus the new game is a critical transition. And I think that happens within individual hearts and minds. And then once, that happens, and I think it's happening, by the way, the quote unquote stars are aligning. And again, I feel kind of a renaissance of consciousness rippling through the earth right now. Once that happens, though, we can push that through our institutions. Education is going to completely change and reform. Religion, all religions should ask this simple question: in the age of highly intelligent machines, what special belief or practice should really get in the way of human community and connection. We're in dire need, and this that will become even more acute
Mm,
in the decades to come. We're in dire need of human connection and community. That is the purpose of religion.
yeah.
So religion bring us together. And then obviously our politics is important in the age of AI. There needs to be legislation, there needs to be regulation, but that needs to be done with a lens of unity, in my opinion, and focus squarely on human flourishing. Otherwise, we'll get a whole lot of division and destruction, which is
Yeah.
scary.
I mean, I'm curious about your thoughts with the younger generation. I turned on the news today, and there's talk of those entry level jobs when you come out of university have already kind of been taken up by AI. And in the book, you talk about it's time to come home and this sort of middle period of our lives where we almost want to go back to that, or we reconnect with that sort of child from our past,
Yeah,
and we have some degree of wisdom, so we kind of can, I guess, figure this out a little bit more. But there are young people coming out of school at the moment and are feeling desperation, they're feeling anxious, they're trying to figure this thing out. What do you what's some of the sort of advice that you're giving to them? You know, as you say, in the long run, this will all kind of figure itself out. But there's real fear at the moment, particularly for the younger
absolutely.
folks. And
Yeah, which I think is warranted. I don't want to, yeah, I don't want to discount any of that. I think that's warranted. However, I never think fear does not lead to good outcomes.
yeah,
I don't think fear ever leads to good outcomes. This is a great question, and one that I think, equipped to answer. I have four children myself, ages 24 to 14.
we're
Two,
pretty much the same. Our kids and 20. My
yeah,
daughters are
yeah,
24 and
yeah.
down to 15. So.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So I'm a father of four, and like I said, I since the governor's race, I've been teaching as an adjunct entrepreneurship here at the local university, BYU, just down the street from me. A couple of thoughts. One, our children understand change. They've grown up in a world of massive change. So I think in a lot of ways, they're better equipped and more equipped to handle the change that is coming than even adults or
Mm,
older people are. Number one. Number two, I believe this is what we were built for, John. And this is why, again, I wrote the book. This is the message of the moment. This is our generation's time to rise up to meet this challenge for our children and grandchildren.
yeah,
I mean, if we mess this up over the next decade, we are not leaving that our children and grandchildren a better place to live. Their opportunities are not as great. Their hope will not be as strong. So this is our
yeah.
moment.
I love it.
Now let me
You're
just
so
say,
right. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, let me just say, fear never served people well. So I'm not teaching my children to be fearful. I'm not teaching my students to be fearful. I'm teaching them to be faithful, to be hopeful, and to be light on their feet, to be able to not shun AI. I don't understand education university professors who try to act like AI doesn't exist or outlaw AI in the classes. That's not how the future of work is going to happen. The future of work will be in leveraging highly intelligent machines to do a lot of the things that it can do better than we can. So, by the way, I think that means a return to soft skills for humanity, a return to human connection, a return to human creativity and artistry that only comes from an embodied experience, which AI cannot have right now. And so, anyways, there's some thoughts around your question. It's a very complicated question. It's a hard question to answer,
yeah.
but there's some ideas.
I mean, I do think that when we started talking, you talked about coming from a very sort of conservative religious background, and you've obviously had to do some inner work, and you talk about calling your friend who was driving at the time, and I think talking about, hey, have you ever sort of tried magic mushrooms? And in the Mormon religion, this is not something that you would typically be doing. So you've really had to get curious, kind of get vulnerable as you followed this journey. So I'm kind of asking you those questions because I think you come from a position where there was a lot of structure,
Yeah.
and you've really had to kind of probably go against the grain quite a bit, and be very brave. I
Oh, well,
imagine.
thank you, John. That's an understatement. If you knew me and know I mean, I ran for governor in one of the most conservative states here in
Yeah,
Utah. I grew up in one of the most conservative religions. And by the way, I love that faith tradition. And I served a 2-year mission. I've
I read
served
about it. Yeah,
I served in almost every
yeah,
leadership calling in the church. Those are all lay, unpaid, volunteer callings. But I have to follow my heart. I have to follow what I believe God or the universe is speaking to me in my soul. That is the hero's journey.
yeah,
That journey, John, for better or worse, often calls us to the road less traveled. That can be a scary road. That can be a lonely path. That's why it's the road less traveled. But let me just say, in writing this book, again, I viewed this book as my little piece of art and offering to the divine. And when I say the divine, I'm including humanity in that because we are part of the divine. We are um, forms of the divine, in my opinion.
yeah,
And so, no matter the personal outcomes for me, some things are worth our best efforts no matter the cost.
yeah,
And this is just something that I believe, and it's a call to humanity to say we need to sacrifice what may be in our own best interest for the good of all. And AI is going to give us as individuals, especially as leaders, CEOs and companies, politicians, et cetera, religious leaders. It's going to give us opportunities to do that. And I think it's incumbent upon us to step into those roads less traveled, to follow our hearts, even when we're not understood, even when we may be judged. And yeah, and lean in that. A part of that story for me was some journeying into psychedelics, which I
yeah,
have found don't create an illusion, but reveal the illusory parts of the experiences that we're all having here. That's a little bit of a road less traveled for my
yeah,
background, but I stand behind those experiences. I talk about being brave. There's a chapter on anomalies or breaking the
yeah.
pattern, if you
With you,
remember in the
you
book.
told your children, yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and we need more pattern breakers. The
yeah,
quote unquote black sheep have often been criticized. These are the people on the fringes doing crazy stuff. But we need some people on the fringes pushing humanity towards transformation and evolution. If we're to finally get to where we need to be, we need that. So those are the people that we need to welcome in. Less judgment, more love. And I talk also about a funny experience with my wife a year after we were married in Venice, Italy, if you
I love
recall,
that. Yeah,
jumping the fence.
yeah,
And we need some fence jumpers here that will help us get to where we need to be. So yeah, we need to summon all the courage and love that we can bring to this challenge, the challenges that AI is putting before us now.
and I think we have to be taking a look at different perspectives, other people's perspectives. I think that's so important to be able to sort of step out and look at other perspectives. And one of the things you've mentioned is you've been to, I think, 60 different countries, and you've experienced different perspectives, different cultures. The other thing that I think is, in your time in Charlotte, North Carolina, going from door to door, knocking on every door, there was obviously the rejection, but there were conversations with people who maybe didn't see the same perspective as you did, in terms of your ministry, but you listened to
Yeah.
them, you learned from them, they learned from you. And I think that's something that I really, until I'd read your book, we've all, I suppose, folks who aren't in the Mormon sort of faith have seen the missionaries, and
Yeah.
I mean, there's all sorts of jokes and whatever. But till I read your book, I had a completely different perspective on what you've gone through and how that must have shaped you as well, and the different conversations you've had with folks and the tolerance and that sort of thing. And I think seeing other people's perspectives is so important right now, and being tolerant of
It,
it.
it, it certainly is. Again, no matter our different backgrounds, our different faith traditions, our different economic, socioeconomic status, etc., no matter our differences, we always share more in common. And my mission helped me see that. I mean, I served in the inner city parts of Charlotte and High Point, Greensboro, North Carolina, and I served out in the sticks in Hendersonville and Asheville, North Carolina. These small
Yeah.
communities. And yeah, I love people. I learned to love people from all different faith traditions, from all different backgrounds. People are messy, but that messiness is the magic that humans bring to this existence. And it's the magic that could easily be sucked out by highly efficient and effective machines. I mean, we are the sum of who we hang out with. So when our children spend more time with devices or machines than they do with other humans, we have to ask ourselves, what may our children become?
Yeah.
What kind of relationship really creates transformation? I believe that AI, can be powerfully helpful for people in need, mental health, other ways. But I think that real human transformation only comes through real human connection,
Mm.
which includes pain and rejection and heartbreak. And it's through that process that we, quote unquote, grow up. It's through that process that we mature, that we grow up. And, that's a critical issue in this age, is human versus AI relationships. And I think we need to double down on our humanity and encourage our younger generation to connect with humans and to be with humans, even though it's messy, even though it's hard. And yeah, this it's an exciting time, John. I think luckily the obstacle becomes the way here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of people are afraid of AI. I understand why. A lot of people hate AI. Let's just unplug it. Let's have it go away. I mean, maybe that is the best plan, but that's just not a realistic plan. That's not what's going to happen. So I think we need to look at AI, the obstacle, as the way. It is pointing, or will help point the way for humans' transformation and further evolution. That's my bet. That's my feeling. And that's kind of the roadmap, the beginnings of the roadmap that I lay out in the book.
Yeah, and I think you've done a phenomenal job of that. I have that same optimistic feeling about AI. I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day whose daughter has been suffering from epilepsy for years. I mean, hundreds of fits a day, or 100 fits a day. And Elizabeth said to me they had this little dial on her head, and they kept adjusting it, trying to get it right. New doctor said, let's take all that information, put it into AI. They did that, made the adjustment, and she and her husband were sitting there and said, Grace hasn't had a fit in the last 8 hours or whatever it was, slept through a night, and it's now been years, a couple of years. But that, there's so much potential for good. And I think, going back to what you're saying at the beginning, AI is a reflection of us, this cosmic reflection. So I'm curious, Jeff, what does it mean to be more human now? What's the work we've got to be doing right now to follow that optimistic path, or that, the versus collective evolution versus mutual destruction? I think that
And that's
we
what I,
talk
yeah,
about.
I think it's our own heroic journeys. We're all on our own hero's journey. We all feel that call, more or less. A lot of us have neglected that. A lot of us can't hear it anymore. I'm reminding you, every listener that's listening right now, that you're on your own heroic journey. And as you lean into that individually, that's the journey that will also feed into the collective or all of humanity's heroic journey. That journey often includes a lot of hard inner work, like you
Yeah.
said. So instead of looking outside of us, how many followers do I have? What does my bank
Mm.
account look like? What kind of car am I driving? How do I look? How does my hair, whatever. It's going inside. I know it's trite
Yeah.
and whatever, but what we're really looking for, all of us, is already inside of us. So, as more of us, I know this is counterintuitive. There's a lot of things in the book that I feel like are a little bit counterintuitive, maybe a little bit countercultural right now. But as we slow down a little bit, as we breathe, go inside ourselves on a consistent basis, we can really start to hear our hero's journey again, to reclaim that part of ourselves and to follow that path as closely as we can. So I bring up several things, so how do you do that? Meditation has become a
Mm.
massive part of my life since I lost the governor's race. So the last 5 years. Before that, you couldn't slow me down for a moment. If you told me to sit still, it was not working.
Yeah.
Now I meditate daily. There's a lot of hot and cold therapies that you can do that have been really helpful for me. Yoga, of course, like any flow activity in nature where you're moving and sensing and feeling is fantastic. I'm an advocate for the wise use of plant medicine where it's legal and in very safe ways with coaches, etc. That if you feel called to that, that can be a magnificent tool, so to speak, in your tool bag. I think it's critical that we, even though this is called the last book written by a human, we need to continue to read from the best books,
Mm.
from
And
the
write.
poet.
Journal.
Yeah, and
Right.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this includes poets and scripture and
Yeah.
modern thinking and writing around, again, I'll say, the road less traveled.
Yeah.
Anyways, there's specific levers. It's interesting, John. I have found in my life, I'm 48 years old, the most powerful ideas are often the most simple
Mm.
and therefore the most neglected. We want some special pill we can take or diet, or we want a shortcut. There aren't shortcuts to the work that we're being called to do. This is mostly inner work. It's hard and scary work, but it's what we were built for.
Yeah.
My message in the book is we can do it, and we can do it together, and we can do it more beautifully than we have ever done before. At least that is like my hope and prayer and meditation, is that
Yeah.
we can do this together. And again, I just caution the listener not to say, "Oh, I've heard this." Well, what do you do it? Have you tried it? These are simple ideas that we overlook, but they're the most powerful medicine, quote unquote, for change that we have. And so that's what I
I think that big
encourage.
point that you're making is slow down. Stop the
Yeah.
doing, start the being. And as you say, there's so many different ways that you can just kind of slow down a little bit, whether it's meditation, cold water therapy, warm, all those different things, just start to bring them into your life. And again, going back to what we said at the beginning, for the business owners who are listening to this, you're climbing this mountain and you're just doing, and you get to the top and you realize, what's up here but that cold air. It's
Yeah.
the trip now seems to be slow down,
Yeah, yeah,
start
and it's
being.
very counterintuitive. It's very countercultural. Everything is speeding up, so you're going to have some fortitude, a backbone to do that. But I think that's critical. See, I think that AI presents an opportunity for all of us to participate in upgrading the entire human experience via education reform, healthcare, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
um, political reform,
Political,
religious reform. I think
business.
that that's the opportunity before us. It's an exciting opportunity. It's also daunting. I
Yeah.
understand that it's daunting, but all of these institutions are just made up of people. They're made up of individuals like you and I. And the hope in writing this book, like you said, it's some personal expense to me, to
Yeah.
my reputation potentially, to this isn't a you know, as a guy who's done what I've done, I should be writing this kind of self-congratulatory book. This is not that. This is kind of the opposite of that. I bear my soul. I share almost the worst of my humanity in some ways, and I'm on the journey along with everyone else. And this is my little offering to the divine. This is what I can do now. And the point of it was to start a conversation amongst humans that then ultimately leads to a movement. I talk about the human political movement in the book, and we'll see, what happens. But I hope that this leads to a lot of conversations around the dinner table and elsewhere, and ultimately to a movement. So that's kind of the goal of the book.
Yeah, and as I listen to you, I think to myself, it's definitely one of those books that's worth going back and rereading, because I think there's going to be so much in it the second time around that the use of stories and imagery in the book, you sitting on the lake, kind of dipping your feet in your favorite dock or off the sort of edge of the dock, but talking about the lake house and the time that you have there, and that all things kind of die, and that I think you were talking about your parents being able to walk down to have a swim and things like that, and just really slowing down, being present, and enjoying those moments in time,
Yeah.
because we don't do that, and we just keep going, and it's only, I think, as we get older that we start to realize, hang on, we've lost so much. As your kids grow up, we start to
Yeah.
realize that. I mean, yeah,
I agree. I mean, this usually happens in middle life, which you and I are both in. But I see this awareness though growing like at a younger age, and I think you can feel that. Can you not sense that in your kids? I can.
yeah,
I see that in my university students. They're hungry. I start every one of my university classes with like a 2 to 5 minute meditation. My students love it.
yeah,
And so they have an innate understanding of presence that I think you and I didn't grow up with, and they have a hunger for it, a desire for that, and I think there's a reason, a cosmic, divine reason for that hunger.
yeah. We, you also, I get the sense that one of the questions you ask, or one of the things that you talk about in that cosmic eye that you refer to, and splitting up,
Yeah, the all-seeing eye in the sky. Yeah,
the all-seeing eye. But I almost get the feeling that you think perhaps we need a bit of putting back together. I think there was talking about Humpty Dumpty as well in that, and we're at the stage where, as humans and as the human race, we've just kind of been blindly going along, and we're at that point where there's an opportunity almost to put ourselves back together. I'm
yeah.
sort of
Again,
curious
I
about.
I think that's kind of the game. I put game in quotes because this isn't a trivial game,
Yeah,
because there's so much pain in the world and in existence. I've felt that pain, and my heart goes out to anyone in the world that's feeling that pain now. It's real. Now, I think that pain ultimately serves a divine purpose of transformation. And I think the quote unquote game that we're playing is putting the pieces back together again, is remembering the divine oneness or unity that is actually at the baseline heart of all consciousness and all existence. So I think that God has limited itself as an all, let's say an all powerful God has limited itself, has caused itself to forget, and is now expressing itself through us and waking up to the reality of what is going on here. And I
yeah.
think that AI is a powerful tool in this waking up process that humans are going through.
So, I mean, I'm curious on that one, Jeff. Your thinking is that AI can actually help to unite us both, I suppose, as individual and in
Yeah.
as this in this oneness.
Yeah, think of it. So in the parable of the all-seeing eye, it's a bedtime story that I wrote that I said I would tell my kids.
Yeah.
Um, there's an all-seeing eye in the sky that scanned the cosmos, far and wide, as far as it could go, wherever it could go, and it saw nothing. It couldn't see anything. And it had its problem, like all eyes have. Try to look at your own eye. You cannot see your own eye without a reflection.
Yeah.
So without a reflection, this all-seeing, all-powerful eye had a challenge. It understood this. It probably felt lonely, probably wondered if it was good that it existed, why it existed. And so it took a drastic approach, and it shattered itself like a shattering mirror into an infinite number of parts. And it caused these parts to forget its cosmic divinity. It caused these parts to be limited individually in their collective power and scope. And I think that's analogous to our experience here on Earth. Putting these pieces back together is the game that we are playing. Now, take that here to Earth. I think that with AI, we are doing a very similar thing. We're creating a reflection of ourselves, of humanity here on Earth, so that through this reflection, we can remember more about who we are, what reality really is, and then begin to put those pieces back together in its, like, let's say, divine shape. That is the ultimate divine purpose of AI. Think of it, we're kind of bringing the ethics and economics, of
Yeah.
heaven down to earth. Because AI, the thing that's different about AI than any other tool that humans have created is its agentic nature. Its ability to be and to have a desire to be an agent unto itself. It's already showed early signs of this. I think that agentic power and nature will grow. And then we're faced with, again, some of the ethics or challenges of, again, heaven come down here to earth. And so, yeah, that's the all-seeing eye in the
That's the
sky.
awesome.
That's the analogy
Yeah.
that I use in the book to talk about our spiritual dilemma in existence and how it relates to our present moment here on planet Earth in 2025 as we race to build highly intelligent machines and AI.
Like it almost feels like we should be getting ourselves together before we build highly intelligent machines,
Well,
right?
obviously we need to be doing it. We do need to get ourselves together. That's what the book is a call to
Yeah.
humanity to speed up our process of awakening so
Yeah.
that we can uh, put into AI as much insight into human flourishing as absolutely possible and into the human condition. We need to help AI understand the human condition in as much as it can so that it can reflect back to us solutions to challenges that we face around poverty and hunger and
And
disease and division, not to increase those challenges, but to help us come up with solutions that no single human on earth could possibly come up with, because we can't contain all the data of human existence. We forget. AI doesn't forget. So it could be the most powerful tool for humanity ever, and certainly for our awakening that we've created, if we come at it with that lens. That is the question. If you remember, I end the bedtime story, which I didn't do a great job of telling the story. I'm sorry. I encourage the listeners to pick up a book. Please read it. The last book written by a human. Share your thoughts with me. I tell the story better there. But if you remember, at the very end, I say all this beautiful bedtime story, and then I have a big maybe at
yes, I
the
saw
end.
the maybe.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
this could maybe be what it's like if we want it to do. If not, it could also be far uglier and far more destructive, unfortunately.
With all of this said right now, and given that a lot of the listeners are business owners, entrepreneurs, and where you come from having built some very successful businesses. What's some advice for those business owners at the moment who are trying to think about how AI fits into their business and how to handle that? Personally, I feel like organizations that are companies and businesses are one of the things that can help us do a lot of good in the world and transform the
Absolutely.
world. So, how do we approach it as a
Absolutely.
business owners and CEOs?
Yeah, I loved my entrepreneurial career. I talk about in the book about conscious
Yeah,
capitalism
yeah,
and how if there are just a few powerful companies that control AI, there won't just be some winners and losers. We will all lose. Humanity will lose. So we can't allow that to happen. I think there are three ideas that I had to answer your question. Number one, so what could business leaders, entrepreneurs do? Number one, don't be afraid of AI and don't bury your head in the sand. I would look at every possible way that AI could potentially help your business. Number two, only through this lens, though. Remember that the purpose of business was to bless and serve and empower humanity.
I love that. I loved how you put that in the book. Yeah, brilliant.
It's for
Yeah,
humans.
yeah,
It's not for the bottom line. So the only lens, I'm speaking generally at a very high level, correct lens to look at AI innovation within a company is through the point, I think, of human flourishing. In other words, if you can implement AI that helps your people, that builds them, that increases their capacity, that even, of course, affects the bottom line positively without hurting humans. That is the lens to look at it through human flourishing. Now,
yeah,
the third step, and these are kind of sequential. The problem is, or the challenge will be, so the third, get ready to go on your own hero's journey or for it to ramp up because a lot of the decisions that you will be asked to make you'll need to make decisions from a collective human context and not maybe what is best for you personally and or for your company's bottom line. That's not the purpose of business. The purpose of business was to serve humanity, not to run humanity. And there's going to be ample opportunity for political leaders, religious leaders, and business leaders to step into their heroic journey and to make hard decisions that will benefit all of mankind instead of them or their bottom line.
yeah,
I think this is
yeah.
at the heart of this experience, of this experiment, of this cosmic puzzle, of this game that we're playing. It's, may I say, as Jesus said, it's laying our life down for our friends, which just simply means choosing what's better for humanity than for ourselves.
Yeah,
That's the challenge ahead of us. That's the call. That's the opportunity. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's
yeah, I
going
hear
to
you.
happen.
But
I'm saying it could happen.
yeah,
We could opt into this. We could opt into what I think I call in the book an upgrade of
yeah,
humanity and our
yeah,
consciousness. That's our choice. We'll see what we choose as humans over the next couple decades. It will be interesting to see. It's going to be a
sweet.
fun ride.
It is.
Buckle up.
Buckle up. So, one last question before we go. The name of the show is the Freedom Experience. What does freedom mean to you, Jeff? I'm curious about that one with all you've been through.
Yeah, I want to sit into that for a minute and feel into it. Freedom means to me simply two things. One, the ability to bring presence and awareness into everything that I do. So, this podcast, I've tried, I'm sure I have 100 messages that have happened in the last hour or so to you. I don't care. I'm
Yeah,
with another human being. I don't care that we don't know each other well. I don't care that we're separated by a big ocean. I'm with John. So to bring presence to everything I do, parenting, being a CEO, whatever it is.
I love it.
The
Yeah.
second thing is to live in non-resistance to what reality actually is. In other words, no cherished outcomes, no selfish outcomes. I hope that this podcast sells hundreds, thousands, millions of books because of this podcast, but I don't have that out. My cherished outcome is simply to connect with you, John, and to hopefully make a difference to some of your listeners.
Yeah.
And so too often resist what is, including AI. If we resist AI, if we fight against it, it's going to learn from that fight and it's going to fight itself. So living in total non-resistance to what comes my way, being in flow, living in flow and presence. To me, that's true freedom to me.
Love it. Thank you, Jeff. Just, we'll put the link to the book in the notes. We'll put links to your website in the notes. How else can people get hold of you that we should make sure in here? LinkedIn, I guess, is probably always one of those places.
Yeah. Yeah,
We'll put all
the
that in.
last book written by a human, it drops August 19th. And the best way to learn about it is either through my website, which is just jeffburningham.com, or I'm on almost all social medias at Jeff Burningham. So LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, and Substack just recently.
Okay.
So just, yeah, I think people can find me, and I love for people to read the book, and then I want to hear your thoughts. Reach out to me, share your thoughts or ideas. Again, I want this to be a conversation starter that that possibly leads to a human movement, that leads to more human flourishing and less division and destruction.
Well, I think you've definitely written a conversation starter for sure, and I'm sure there's going to be that you're going to have that following. I mean, I sat this weekend, and I tell you what, summers in Zurich were fantastic. We've had rain all the time, but had it been sunny out here and down by the lake or at home, I would have had that book and carried on reading. I literally couldn't put it down. I admit there were times where I sort of thought, where's he going with this? But you do bring it back, and get it. Okay, I get that now. And I love the little prompts at the end of every chapter to, going back and rereading the book now and really spending the time thinking about that, knowing that I don't have to get on a call with you and be prepared.
Yeah. No,
I can
let's
actually
stay
do some of that
connected.
thinking. So,
And I'm happy to hear it. I mean, I just got my first copies last week, and
I
this
saw
is
you
embarrassing.
unboxing them with Sally, right? The two of you.
Yeah, with
unboxing.
Sally. Yeah,
That must have been such
it's
a
embarrassing. But as soon as I got it, I dove into it again, even though I've read it 100 times and it's my own book, and I couldn't stop either. I was pulled in by it. So I hope that other readers have a similar experience, and I'm glad that you felt that, John. Thank you so much.
brilliant. Very grateful for you sending me an advance copy. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Yeah, it's great to be with you today.
Hey, thanks for tuning into the Freedom Experience. If this episode sparked something for you, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, wherever you listen or watch your podcasts. And if you're enjoying the show, we'd love for you to leave a 5-star review. It really helps us to get in front of more values-driven leaders, business owners, and entrepreneurs. Then to dive deeper into the work that we're doing on how to grow a great company that's not just a big company, then head over to smallgiants.org. You'll find leadership programs, virtual workshops, and a community of people building with intention. And then finally, if Jeff's message stuck with you, grab a copy of the book. It's coming out on the 19th of August. It's called The Last Book Written by a Human. Everything's in the show notes. And it's one of those books that shifts how you see the world and how you show up. And I think it's really relevant to business leaders right now. So you can find out more about Jeff's work at jeffbirmingham.com or follow him across social media, LinkedIn, all those good places. That's it for me. See you next time.